possible. You got to move into things being endlessly possible. This brings me back to the movie Mind Walk, and I'm going to show you another clip in a second from Mind Walk. So this slide here, endless possibilities, probability patterns. So it's things that could possibly happen. And quantum physics, quantum mechanics, whatever you want to use the term there, is showing that more and more things are possible than we used to think. Once you get past the concepts that have locked us into old patterns. In quantum mechanics, they talk about the observer changing the observed. So simply by observing something, you help to change it, which is an amazing concept. Because if you observe something negatively, you're going to affect it negatively. And when you see it positively, you affect it for the positive. And this goes back to what I was saying about Jesus being able to heal. Imagine if you could really own this completely and see someone healed in such a strong, powerful way that transference of belief or probability is transferred to that person. That's pretty amazing. That's a lot of power. If there are truly endless possibilities, then we are freer than we think. However, everything and anything may be probable, but what determines what happens? What shows up in our lives? So what is it? What determines what shows up in our life? Based on what I've been talking about, what does that? It's the unconscious, the subconscious. And that's what I was talking about being scary, is because if we don't know what's in our subconscious, then we're creating things by default that we may not want. And then we tend to look at what's being created around us and then blame what's around us. Back to the slide here. If the subconscious is running the show and we don't know everything that is in our unconscious, then reality is a default. In other words, instead of being a part of the creative process, we just let it happen to us and complain about it. Then we make up false concepts, by the way, which limit us even more, to explain this default creation, like God is teaching me a lesson, this is my karma, etc., etc., etc. And I've seen lots of people that could be possibly healing from something, but they have this belief or concept that God is teaching them a lesson, and they can't let go of the thing that they just need to just simply let go of, not see it as a lesson. And it's amazing to me how we imprison ourselves with our own mind. It's pretty powerful when you really see it. And people know how to work this. They know how to enslave you into buying things and controlling you because they know this whole mechanism. So here's the slide based on endless possibilities from Mind Walk.
Now remember that all the Newtonian concepts were based on things that could actually be seen, or at least visualized. But what they were now finding in this strange and unexpected world were concepts that could no longer be visualized. And when they went on battling with this absurd phenomena of atomic physics, they were forced to admit to themselves that they didn't have a language, not even an adequate way of thinking to describe their new discoveries. They were forced to think in entirely new ways in terms of radically new concepts. To understand why matter is so solid, they had to question the conventional ideas about the very existence of matter. And after many frustrating years, they were forced to admit that matter does not exist with certainty in definite places, but rather shows tendencies to exist.
Tendency? What the hell does that mean?
Now let's say we want to observe an electron out there. Now we cannot say that it is in a definite place. We can rather say it has a tendency to be out there in the front rather than in the back. Or here to the left rather than over there to the right. In scientific language, we actually don't speak about tendencies. We speak about probabilities.
I seem to remember voting for a bill in the Senate that gave some physicists a lot of money for a detector that they said would tell them exactly where an electron is. Were we being gypped?
Not at all. The strange thing is that when you actually make a measurement of the electron, it is in a definite place. But between measurements, you cannot say that it is in a definite place, or that it has traveled a definite path from one place to another.
You mean when you want to measure it, it just sort of shows up?
Yeah.
Oh, kind of like out-of-work actors or presidential candidates like Jack Edwards. What do you think? What do you think? Hey, tough guy.
Yeah.
My knees hurt.
Okay, let me get this straight. You measure it and the electron is there. It shows up, like Thomas said. But in between measurements, you can't say for sure that it's in a definite place, or even that it went on a definite path from one place to another. So how does it go from here to there? It moves, doesn't it?
No.
You mean it stays in the same place?
No.
Well, wait a minute. Either the electron moves or it doesn't move.
Well, you can't say that. Well, are you getting a feeling now of what these physicists felt? You see, an electron doesn't move from place to place, and it doesn't stay in one place either. It manifests itself as probability patterns spread out in space. And the shape of these probability patterns changes with time, something which might seem like movement to human perception.
Are you saying that the electron sort of gets smeared out over a large region, and then when you measure it with the measuring gun, it collapses into a small point?
You got it. You see, all subatomic particles, electrons, protons, neutrons, manifest this strange existence between potentiality and reality.
So at the subatomic level, there are no solid objects.
No, they are not.
Well, if there are no solid objects at the subatomic level, how are there solid objects at any level?
That's the amazing thing. This simple question, what makes this rock so solid, goes way beyond our power of imagination. I mean, I cannot explain this to you in visual terms. Of course, I can do it in mathematical equations, but there's no metaphor for it.
How can you live in a world that's unmetaphorical? I mean, you have to perceive reality in some way. I mean, this is solid.
Okay. Let's take an atom from within this granite, a silicon atom with its 14 electrons. Now, the probability patterns of these electrons arrange themselves like shells around the nucleus, each shell containing several electrons. Now, within the shells, the electrons are everywhere at the same time, so to speak. But the probability patterns that resemble shells are extremely stable and very hard to compress.
Matter is solid because probability patterns are difficult to compress.
That's as good as it gets.
So I was right to sleep through Mr. Giddis's physics class. That little model he made out of Tinker Toys with sticks and balls, that was wrong, right?
Right, wrong. Yeah, it's a lousy visualization, but then no one did it any better.
If the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear as it is, infinite. William Blake.
I really like that clip there. It brings home the whole idea. 'Cause some of these concepts are kind of hard to visualize, and basically what's being said there is that everything is probable all at the same time. And this comes down to the very fact that you are where you are, and you're experiencing what you're experiencing based on what you're agreeing to, what you're projecting. The reality we're living in is an agreement. We're collectively agreeing on how it is. And if we struggle against what's through the physical world, what's there, like, let's say, the conspiracy theory, Nibiru coming, whatever it is, if we fight against that on a physical level, then we really don't access our true power. But if you see that there are multiple possibilities of different experiences, we tune in, simply tune into the one that you want to experience. Don't keep focusing on the problem. Tune into the aspect that you want to, and by doing that, you resonate with those of the same agreement. And in a way, it's like an ascension. You ascend from one reality to the next. But the key to it, that's coming to me more and more, is you simply focus on that which you want to experience, not what you don't want to experience. Yeah, maybe we need to hear things to tell us what's going on, but then you don't focus on it. And sometimes that's hard because you hear something, it's like, don't focus on a pink elephant. Well, now you got a pink elephant in your head. And I think Buddha, I've kind of gone back to, since I started going back and looking at affirmations recently, putting this together, I restarted thinking about Buddhism too, because I first started getting into Buddhism, and I think Buddha was trying to help in this way, and he did the best he could from trying to help people where they were. You know, he taught you through meditation how to control your thoughts and feelings. So basically, he was teaching how to control the thing that created your reality. Of course, he took it to the point of, you know, don't desire anything because desiring will cause the suffering. And there's a tricky little, you know, there's a razor's edge here, because it's true, because you can want things, and in wanting things, that can trip you up. It can take you out of the possibility of having it based on your limitation. But if you take from the aspect Buddhism the concept of being able to control your mind, so bringing in that concept of Buddhism, controlling your mind, being aware of what you think, then you do have the possibility of creating and experiencing what you do by blending Buddhism with quantum mechanics or quantum physics, which is what I'm trying to get to with this video, is to blend old with new, yin and yang. It all goes with putting things together, not taking them apart. So Buddha gave us the concept of being able to conscious of our thoughts and our feelings. And imagine what we experience as a projection, right? Let's say you have a negative feeling about someone or something. You've already projected that onto reality, and then that person comes into reality and reinforces what you are projecting. So by being aware of your thoughts, you stop the projection before it ever happens, and therefore you don't get the reflection. Does that make sense? It's pretty easy. If you don't put out what you don't want to experience, you don't experience it. And even if you have difficult people in your life, if you change your projection of them, I guarantee that your experience of them will change. And that's where you get to master your own power. It's not mastering the world around you. You're not going to change the problems in the world by trying to fix the world. You change the world by changing you. That is self-mastery. That's quantum physics at its root. You change yourself and you become that. Pretty awesome. So next, improbability drive. And the next clip I'm going to show you comes from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Again, one of those cool little movies. And this is a quote from The Hitchhiker's Guide to Galaxy. Even faster than light or even ludicrous speed, the infinite improbable drive allows the fictional ship, the Heart of Gold, to go anywhere, no matter how improbable. I highlighted Heart of Gold in green because if you take the L out, you take that one letter out, it's Heart of God, which gets us back to the Holy Grail again, back to the assemblage point. So if you reread that or interpret that, being able to be in the heart of God, in other words, you're resonating with that consciousness of God, Christ consciousness, anything is probable. That's powerful. And this is a little quote from the movie Very Probable. I love that. Cracks me up every time I hear it. Very probable. And then, I mentioned this before, but the impossible, when you begin to look at it a different way, the impossible equals I'm possible. And since you are the center of everything that you project, if you're possible, anything is possible. So I'll show the little clip here based on the improbable drive.
The infinite improbability drive is a wonderful new method of crossing interstellar distances in a few seconds, without all that tedious mucking about in hyperspace. As the improbability drive reaches infinite improbability, it passes through every conceivable point in every conceivable universe almost simultaneously. In other words, you're never sure where you'll end up or even what species you'll be when you get there. It's therefore important to dress accordingly. The infinite improbability drive was invented following research into finite improbability, which was often used to break the ice at parties by making all the molecules in the hostess's undergarments leap simultaneously 1 foot to the left in accordance with the theory of indeterminacy. Many respectable physicists said they weren't going to stand for that sort of thing, partly because it was a debasement of science, but mostly because they didn't get invited to those sort of parties.
Wow. Is this gonna happen every time we hit that button?
Very probably, yes.
Ah, I think the Earthman's about to be sick.
Whoa, whoa, do it in the trash can, hey, man. This ship's brand new.
Oh, dear.
Oh, come on.
We have normality.
Okay, that was kind of a funny, silly little clip there, but I love the aspect there about the probability of things. In quantum physics, anything is probable, anything is possible. And why we don't see that right now is because we're stuck in the concept of rules, regulations. You know, we've spent a lot of time and energy trying to find out how the universe works based on what? Rules, right? But those rules are the part that enslaves us. So to get to anything as possible, we have to embrace that nothing is really as it seems, which is kind of a scary part. We spent all this time, you know, describing how it all works, and now we have to let go of that to move to our next step. Does that make sense? We took all this time making sense of everything. Now we have to let it go. That's, you know, you can see why we hold on to that, because it helps us make sense of things. You know, God, you know, I'm suffering through this because God wants me to, or it's my karma. When in actuality, that's not entirely true. So how do we start taking over this process? Well, in this slide, taking over the creating process, I got a clip from Inception, and this clip perfectly describes it. And this is a little quote from there. We simultaneously create and perceive our world. So we're projecting out our reality and at the same time seeing it. And in the clip he's going to talk about that it happens so seamlessly and quickly that we don't even realize that we're the ones projecting it. Remember, we're looking at the world trying to describe why it's messed up, when really it's our projections, what people have put into us, what poisonous apples we've eaten. And he's going to explain, you'll see in the movie, that to get in the middle of this process of creating and perceiving is where our true power is. And he also talks about in the clip that our subconscious is what fills in the details. So, and remember, our subconscious is where all of our junk is, all the negative stuff, the hidden stuff. It's the part of the iceberg that's below the water. And the part of the iceberg below the water is what sunk the Titanic. And what's below our surface of our consciousness, what's in our unconscious, is what sinks our ships. So we ultimately have to begin to take control of the creative process and thereby not let the subconscious create, we choose to create. And then by doing that over and over, eventually the subconscious becomes more and more conscious. So here's a clip from Inception.
Of our brain's true potential. Now, that's when we're awake. When we're asleep, our mind can do almost anything.
Such as?
Well, imagine you're designing a building, right? You consciously create each aspect. But sometimes it feels like it's almost creating itself, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, like I'm discovering it.
Genuine inspiration, right? Now, in a dream, our mind continuously does this. We create and perceive our world simultaneously, and our mind does this so well that we don't even know what's happening. That allows us to get right in the middle of that process.
How?
By taking over the creating part. Now, this is where I need you. You create the world of the dream. We bring the subject into that dream, and they fill it with their subconscious.
How could I ever acquire enough detail to make them think that it's reality?
Well, dreams, they feel real while we're in them, right? It's only when we wake up that we realize something was actually strange. Let me ask you a question. You never really remember the beginning of a dream, do you? You always wind up right in the middle of what's going on.
I guess, yeah.
So how did we end up here?
Well, we just came from the,
Think about it, Ariadne. How did you get here? Where are you right now?
We're dreaming?
You're actually in the middle of the workshop right now, sleeping. This is your first lesson in shared dreaming. Stay calm. Just a dream, is it? A face full of glass hurts like hell. When you're in it, it feels real.
That's why the military developed dream sharing. It was a training program for soldiers to shoot and stab and strangle each other and then wake up.
How did architects become involved?
Someone had to design the dreams, right? Why don't you give us another 5 minutes?
5 minutes? What? We were talking for like at least an hour.
In a dream, your mind functions more quickly, therefore, time seems to feel more slow.
5 minutes in the real world gives you an hour in the dream.
Why don't you see what you can get up to in 5 minutes? Got the basic layout. Bookstore, cafe, almost everything else is here, too.
Who are the people?
Projections of my subconscious.
Yours?
Yes. Remember, you are the dreamer. You build this world. I am the subject. My mind populates it. You can literally talk to my subconscious. That's one of the ways we extract information from the subject.
How else do you do it?
By creating something secure like a...
So there you have it. We are projecting, creating, and perceiving at the same time, and the subconscious is the one that fills in. Just like when you're dreaming. When you're dreaming, you're mixing up experiences you've had, movies you watched, and your subconscious creates such a reality to you in your head that it seems so real. You feel it when you're lucid dreaming. So extremely powerful. So one of the ways that we can begin to start taking over this creative process is through logos, which means the word. Words are things. Whether said out loud or inside your head, they have real power. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. John 1:1. God. God equals magi, magician. What is God? Do you ever think what God is? How did God make what we call the known universe? What did God make it out of? If God made it from himself, then what does that mean? And how do we create? With mental energy, I believe. And I believe God is consciousness. So if you create something out of yourself, you actually, in God's perception, which I think are a smaller aspect of that, is that we're creating with mental energy. We're creating with consciousness, just like God does. God thinks it, and consciousness becomes that. And he's not making it out of anything other than himself or herself, God, self. So we're creating reality through this mental consciousness energy, this network, which in reality is basically empty. All that mankind has made has come from our imagination. And even if you look at the word imagination, in the middle of the word is magi again. Our true magic comes from our ability to imagine. It's all consciousness. We're playing in a field of consciousness. The three wise men from the east, those are magi again. So basically we're playing in empty space with consciousness putty or Play-Doh, if you will. And our ability to imagine is what creates, like this computer that you may be watching this on, or this TV screen, the car, anything. It comes from imagination first. We think of it, we idealize it, we visualize it until it becomes a reality. But everything first is an imagination, which is really interesting and powerful if you think about it. We create by making believe. We make things happen by imagining them. A true magi can control the elements as indicated in this tarot card. fire, metal, water, and wood. The fifth element, earth, is what we are. We are made of earth, right? God took the earth and breathed life into it. If you look at the word earth, it equals heart. Now we're getting back to what I'm talking about with the black hole being the heart center of the body, the assemblage point. So the earth element, the heart element, is how we blend all the 5 elements which we're part of. We are the earth links, not earthlings, earth links, which we are meant to bridge father, non-physical wave, with mother, physical particle. So going to quantum mechanics, something can either could be a particle or a wave at the same time. They're interchangeable. So our Father who art in heaven, and heaven has to be invisible, something you can't put your finger on, and Mother Earth, 2 concepts of the exact same thing. We tend to think that spiritual life is somewhere out there separate from the physical reality. And if you're thinking that, you're stuck in a 3D limitation. That's one of those concepts we've created to understand the world, but it's become a prison for us. If you can start to begin to perceive that the physical world is just another aspect of spiritual energy and reality, then things really begin to change, and you have the ability to interact with it and change it. This little quote here at the bottom makes me kind of think about how things are physical or non-physical. Like, think about your phone. Technology is crazily amazing sometimes, but I can take my cell phone, take a picture of something, and then email it to myself. Do you ever think about what's being sent? If I take an image and I send it through my phone, through space, what's really being sent? It's just energy. It's just a form of energy. And then it gets to my computer, I can print it off. So basically, energy is becoming something physical. Again, there's that particle wave thing. You're taking a picture on a device, which turns it into a wave, that you then turn again into a particle on your computer and print it out. It's pretty amazing. That's the creative process. Of course, it's on a much lower level, but we have the ability to go higher with our creative potential. And back to logos is speaking things, and this is a logos and numerology. This is a numerology chart, and those of you that don't know numerology, different letters are assigned to different numbers, and the number is 9, which repeats. So 0 is not in there because in numerology you always add your numbers up until you get 1 digit. So 10, if you add 1 and 0, you get a 1. And what's interesting is I was playing with this numerology chart. Out of all the number rows, only 6, the number 6, actually creates a word, fox. So it'd be 666 is what fox means, and we call the devil the sly fox. I just kind of thought that was interesting. This next slide here, numerology's deeper meaning, and we won't go into this completely. We're just going to start this today because I do want to get into conscious languaging and not go over too much, but I'll go over this kind of quickly. All words can be broken down into numerology, and that's the power of logos I'm about to show you. So, number 1 tends to be individual, because we think of it, say, loner, 1, number 1. 2 means balance and union, so in a couple, when they get married, there's 2 people. 3 is communication, interaction. 4 is creation. Think about the 4 corners of the world. Square represents earth energy too. 5 is action and change. 6 is reaction, responsibility. 7 is consciousness and thought. 8 is power. And 9 is the highest level of change, spirituality, and invisible. Whenever you're adding something together, the 9 actually becomes invisible. For example, let's say in numerology you take numbers until you get 1. So if you have 5 numbers, you keep adding them together over and over until you get a number. So let's just use an easy example. Imagine you have the number 199, okay? I can tell you right now it's going to be a 1 because 9s are invisible, but I'll go through the process to show you how they're invisible. If you add 1 and 9 together, you get what? 10, right? And 1 plus 0 is 1. Then you add that 1 to the 9, and the same process happens again. You get a 10, which winds up to being a 1. And what's really interesting to me is that the mala, the sacred beads that the Buddhists meditate with, there's 108 of them. And you add 1 and 8 together, you get 9. So this mystical 9 has always been used in sacred ceremonies and things. And I'm about to show you a clip, or a couple of clips, related to the number 9, which is another reflective from the collective, in a second. And people know how these numbers and how consciousness works because we're being played all the time. And I'll just read this here to you. People know how powerful words and numbers are. Images are non-verbalized words. You know how they say an image is worth 1,000 words? People use their words and images, like in media, in order to manipulate and enslave you. Unhappy, unfulfilled? Well, we'll fix that for $19.99. Do you know why they always use 99 at the end of most prices? Because nines are invisible. We typically overlook them. Something like $10.99 looks like $10, or $19.99 looks like 19, but they're 99 cents is really just 1 cent away from $20. So why don't they just call it $20? They do the 99 because we don't see that. It's an unconscious way of manipulating us, you know, and it makes it seem cheaper somehow. Go over some of the most powerful logos, and then we'll revisit this the next couple of weeks as we go through the conscious language. We'll play with the languaging ourselves and then watch a DVD. So, powerful, life-changing logos. I understand. So I took the word understand and I put the numbers to the letters, and we'll go over that next week a little bit more. And it equals a 3, which equals communication and neutrality, which is pretty interesting. I understand carries the frequency of communication and neutrality, because communication helps us understand, right? So when you like saying to someone, I understand, it gives you access to forgiveness mode, which gives the possibility of accessing grace or erase mode. And you know, we need to get to erase mode to let go of the stuff that's been collected in our subconscious so we can move on. I forgive. Forgive turns out to be a 1, which is pretty cool because 1 means new beginning. So when you forgive somebody, it cleans the slate. It's like access to grace, erase mode, or reboot of the mind and body, if you will. So if we can start using these words like I understand or I forgive, it actually tunes you into higher vibrations instead of being angry and blaming. Love. Love equals a 9, which is another concept of new beginnings and spirituality, higher energy, and invisible. It's like ties you into the invisible, God, if you will. So I love equals access to oneness mode, because if the 9 is invisible, that means there's no separation between anything. It's all one thing. I don't see you separate from me. You get what I'm saying? I think. Think becomes 9. Another aspect of 9 is completion and change. So if I thank you, I get access to rapid change mode, which is another aspect of 9. I see. See turns out to be a 11, which is a master number. 11s, 22s, double-digit numbers that are the same don't lower. So I see, which you heard a lot of that in the movie Avatar. I see is a master number. It's access to God mode. So when I see, it's like not just you see something happening, but there's an awareness there. It's like a witnessing. I see your pain. I see you. It's an acknowledgement of the oneness of us all, and it gives you access to extreme power. And like I said, we're going to revisit this next week. This next slide, you. You is a 7, free is a 7, the heart is a 7. Of course, earth is too, because the earth is an anagram for heart. So these are all number 7. 7 means thought, consciousness, spirituality, and awareness. So this is just another word that we're going to be playing with. So to end up today, or at least this part of what we're going to go over before we do the conscious language video, I'm going to show you a couple of clips from the movie The Nines. I just happened upon this movie and I really like it. It's a little offbeat for some. I'm going to go ahead and give you a spoiler alert. If you haven't seen the movie, this is going to give you the ending. So if you haven't seen it, you may not want to watch the rest of this little video. So I'm going to go ahead. In The Nines, it brings in this whole concept of numerology as coded messages in the hologram. At least from my perception, I see it that way. And how they show the wake-up may not be exactly how it is, but I do see it close to that. As in, we are creating this reality, and we can wake up to something larger. We basically limited ourselves here. Like Buddha calls, stuck on the wheel of birth and death. We're stuck here based on our consciousness, stuck in limiting beliefs, concepts, perceptions. The longer we play with those, even if we're trying to fix them, if we focus on them too much, we get stuck within this wheel. We go, we pass away, we die, we come back. It's because when we pass away, if we have the same frequency, it's like tuning into a station. If I'm on station 99.9 and then I turn off my car and get back in my car, it's still going to be on 99.9. So if we want to go to a different station or a different reality or different experience, we have to tune into that station and stay tuned to that. Therefore, we don't keep coming back. So if you buy into all the limiting perceptions, concepts, struggle, and strife of Earth, you will always keep coming back to that until you learn it. When you learn it, you can move on. And there's plenty of time. That's all there is time. So, without any further ado, this first little clip, this is the beginning of the movie. It's not really super powerful, but it makes me think of the string theory. So, this is just the beginning of the movie, and you'll probably go, why in the heck did he throw this in? It just makes me think of the string theory. Okay, you're probably wondering why I put that in there. Just like I said, it just reminded me of string theory, and then him tying that string to his wrist. It'll have a deeper meaning in one of these next clips. So this next clip shows. You ever seen like the number 1111 on the clock, or 123, or 456, or 444? Those are codes that your subconscious is feeding back to you based on your awareness. It's like trying to get your attention. And this little clip, for me, explains that pretty well, or gives an idea of what I'm trying to say here. So this is nines are everywhere. It's coded messages from God, from the hologram.
There for like 25 years.
Okay, this next clip I titled, Are You a Nine? And a spoiler alert on these next two videos. These will give away the plot of the movie. And the answer to Are You a Nine is we're all on the way to becoming nines.